Have you ever felt, a little undervalued at work, or maybe wondered if a really life-changing salary increase was even on the table? Well, this explainer is all about the real-life story of how one person meticulously planned and pulled off a negotiation that led to a massive raise. So let's get into exactly how they did it. So the story kicks off with a single, pretty audacious sentence. I mean, can you imagine the nerves, the sweaty palms sending that message? A 40% raise. It sounds almost impossible, doesn't it? And after you make a bold request like that, there's always that moment of silence, that agonizing wait for a response. So what do you think happened next? They said yes. Just three little words that changed everything. So the rest of this breakdown is going to answer the one question we are all asking right now: how? Let's unpack the exact strategy they used. Okay, so to really get this success, we first have to understand the situation. The problem wasn't a terrible job or a bad company or anything like that. It was that classic case of just professional stagnation that I think a lot of us can relate to. So picture this. For over 2 years, the workload and the responsibility had pretty much doubled, but the compensation, it hadn't budged one bit. And the biggest thing holding them back wasn't even management. It was that little voice in your head, right? The one making excuses, putting off the conversation, just hoping someone would notice all the hard work. Sound familiar? And then, one evening, something just clicked. There was this fundamental shift in approach. It was a move away from just thinking about how the conversation might go to actually building a completely airtight case. The new mindset was all about preparation, not just practice. Now, this right here is a really key distinction. See, practicing is just rehearsing your lines, hoping you say the right thing at the right time. Preparing is totally different. It's about gathering so much objective evidence that your conclusion basically becomes their conclusion. You make it easy for them to say yes. And this is exactly what that preparation looked like over about 7 days. It kicked off with hard data, researching market rates on multiple job sites. It also meant having real conversations with peers in the industry. And maybe most importantly, it involved meticulously documenting every single achievement and, wherever possible, putting a number to it, quantifying the value. This wasn't an emotional plea, it was evidence. So with this whole evidence file built, it was time to actually ask for the meeting. And notice the language here. It's not a casual, hey, got a minute in the hallway. This message is professional, it's direct, and it signals that this is a serious discussion about long-term value, not just a complaint. Of course, even with all that perfect preparation, that old voice of fear can creep back in. What if they say no? What if it's awkward? But the antidote was this simple, really powerful piece of logic. The current situation was a neither, and the only way to get to a yes was to risk hearing a no. All right, now we're at the main event. It's Thursday, 4 p.m. The meeting is on. This is where all that preparation really gets put to the test. The conversation didn't start with demands. It started with appreciation. And this opening is just brilliant because it frames the entire discussion. It's not about entitlement. It's about aligning your personal growth with the company's success because you genuinely want to be there for the long haul. Then came the ask. But look at how it's constructed. It leads with external, objective market data, which establishes a credible range. And then it states a specific, confident number. There's no emotion here, no I think I deserve. The research is doing all the heavy lifting for you. And after the ask was on the table, nothing, just silence. 10 seconds that probably felt like an eternity. This is such a critical moment in any negotiation. You've made your case. Now you have to be quiet and let the evidence sink in. The partner's response wasn't a quick yes or an immediate no. It was actually a sign that the case was strong enough to need serious consideration. That preparation had elevated this from a simple request to a business proposal that needed a proper review. So 1 week later, the follow-up meeting happens. A revised offer letter is on the table. And the number is a 38.5% increase. I mean, that's a huge victory, right? Most people would have probably just said thank you and stopped right there. But remember, the yes isn't the end, it's the start of the final negotiation. With this calm, professional question, they pushed for that last little bit. It wasn't aggressive at all. It just circled right back to the data and the value that had already been presented. And that was it. The partner literally picked up a pen, crossed out the old number, and wrote in the new one. The full 40% was achieved. Not through luck, not through aggression, but through a deliberate, totally professional process.
So, this is way more than just an inspiring story. It's a repeatable playbook. Let's break it down into the 5 key principles that really made all the difference here. Okay, first, ask for a dedicated meeting to signal you're serious. Second, frame the whole thing around the value you deliver. Third, make your case with objective data, not just feelings. Fourth, be specific. Name an actual number. Don't just ask for a vague raise. And finally, remember that even a great offer can have a little more wiggle room. So, why does this one conversation matter so much? Well, because the impact of being underpaid goes way beyond your next paycheck. It's really crucial to understand the real long-term cost of staying silent.
See, your salary is the base number that every future raise, every bonus, every increment is calculated from. If that base is too low, it creates this compounding disadvantage over time. Over a 10-year career, the difference isn't just a few thousand. It can run into millions, or as you see here, crores, which is tens of millions. It's a massive financial loss.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. You've seen the playbook, you understand the stakes, preparation can beat fear, and data can drive the whole conversation. Just remember that simple logic. The worst they can say is no, the best they can say is yes. And right now, if you haven't asked, you have neither.